Whoops. Welcome back to Lost Cause Ranch. This right here, a little different scene than I was planning on this video. This week we were supposed to be down in Asheville, North Carolina with Justin from Lucky 8, a couple other guys. Obviously, with what's going on down there, my thoughts are out with them, and I hope that everyone can rebuild down there and bring back some semblance of their normal life. Land Rover stuff can wait. So instead, we're going to take this unscheduled week and mess with something a lot of you guys have been waiting for. And that's that guy, the one and only Rover Home Range Rover Camper. We're going to do some trips in the spring with this guy, so we better get going. And we're not too far from the snow flying, so we got some outdoor tasks to take care of before it gets too cold. We also have a little bit of an upgrade happening in the form of these. And the first thing we're going to do is blast off the Plasti Dip to see what we're working with underneath. I think it needs to go back to the way it was. As you can see, the original color is such a good one. I think we want to bring the old camper back to its original glory and get rid of the black and white and go back to the factory blue with the almond topper along with almond colored wheels. You know, something like this. Does that not look good? So I'm just trying to figure out what we're dealing with underneath. Like a lot of the stuff here at the Lost Cause Ranch, this has a story. It was on fire a little bit at one point in time, and I'm assuming after that they did a little Plasti Dip job. But beyond that, we're starting to uncover some other, I guess, things underneath. Let's see what else we can find. Well, that's not quite the right color. So we have a white door. That was a tad unexpected. What also was unexpected, there's not a whole lot of burn damage. The picture of the fire looks like it'd be much worse. We got a little Bondo back here that needs to be addressed. The white door is a unique look. So the passenger side came off fairly easy. It's just tough in the spots that are sanded down or anything where the Plasti Dip has a real good tooth to grip to. But different story on the hood. If you've ever dealt with Plasti Dip, thin and old is not fun to remove, so we're going to throw a little Goo Gone on it, let it soften it up. The hood saw a lot more sun than the sides, so she's pretty crispy. Done. Well, at least for now. So we got a much better look at what we're dealing with on the paint underneath. Not exactly sure what the motive behind the sanding going on here was, but it's nothing we can't fix. The driver's side actually looks in pretty decent shape. That shouldn't take a ton of body work, minus whatever's going on here. Looks like some previous body filler in there, so we'll have to grind that out and get that back right. Passenger side, we obviously have a white door. We'll have to make that blue. There was a fairly decent job done on cutting the wheel wells out. The edges rolled back, front and rear, so we can work with that. A little bit of a gap here. I think it's mainly in this rear door curled in, probably why the front door was replaced. So we'll straighten that out. And then on the camper, you can see the original almond color underneath. I think that's what we're going to go back to. So I just wanted to do the pressure washing because like every year, winter's going to sneak up on me quicker than I expect, and that would be a terrible job to do in freezing weather. We don't need hypothermia, but that'll let us paint this guy this winter. Pretty happy with the condition underneath, actually. It is mighty savable. Now the next thing we're going to tackle, and that is this guy and that guy. That is right, we are starting our 1-ton axle swap on the camper. And why are we bothering with a 1-ton axle swap? There's three main reasons for me. Number one, they're quite a bit stronger. Right now the camper has 33-inch tall tires on it. We are probably going to step that up to a 37-inch tire, which poses a problem with the standard Rover axles. Not the Rover axles' fault when you put a 37-inch tire on it, along with adding more weight, you know, like a massive camper shell. But this 14-bolt Chevy axle will obviously be much stronger, along with a Dana 44 front axle. The pair of these are off a square body Chevy, which gives us the correct side pumpkin offset. A lot of 1-ton axles, the pumpkin is on the left-hand side. We need it over here to use the Land Rover transfer case. Reason number two, we get a much larger brake setup. Obviously, we'll have new stuff on this one. We don't need rusty junk causing problems. We got a nice wide rotor with a bigger diameter. In the rear, we have drum brakes, but those are gonna get tossed away and we will do a disc brake conversion with more than likely the same size caliper and rotor back here. So with the extra weight and mass of this very unique Range Rover, we'll be able to woe it down a little bit better. Because at the end of the day, we do have a trailer hitch on the back, and when we're out exploring, you never know when you might drag another Land Rover home. And reason number 3 is kind of hard to see in the shadows here, but look at the massive negative offset these steel wheels have. And that is to get a nice wide track width to match the big camper shell. With that extra track width, this thing is surprisingly stable. It's never been uneasy or made it feel like it's going to tip over, and most of that's due to being many inches wider than a factory Range Rover. There's probably more than half of this tire out past where the factory one would lay. But the big downfall is when you are putting a huge negative offset on something, you're messing up the steering with the scrub radius and all that. Somehow this thing manages to have a worse turning radius than a normal Range Rover Classic. Didn't know that was possible. It also puts unnecessary load on all our components underneath just because of the extra leverage. But up top here is a standard Discovery 1 axle, which would be the same thing as the campers, and you can see just how much wider a full width 1-ton axle is than what is on there now. Therefore, when we get our new wheel set up, we will not have to go with that super negative offset, something a little more standard. And the start of the 1-ton axle swap will involve a lot of this. Or maybe actually this one, because we'll probably blow through too many batteries. We have to get all the factory brackets cut off this thing and essentially get it down to a nice smooth axle tube so we can start on with the next process. So the camper actually drives down the road fantastic. Nice spring rate and everything to handle what is going on there. So we are not going to mess with that. We're going to use the standard suspension setup for the camper. So over here at the LS swapped Defender, you can kind of see some of what we will need to add to the 1-ton axle. We'll need our radius arm mounts, we'll need our spring perches along with shock mounts, and then we'll have to figure out our steering setup. Panhard bar is going to be easy, and the steering won't be terrible, but we do have to switch our tie rod hookup from the left-hand side to the right-hand side on the axle. So we got a couple different ways of doing that, but right now that is a future Joe problem. First, we got to take care of what is probably some of my least favorite things to do. One down, just like 25 more to go. Well, that's nice. I don't think that one was much good anymore. Jeez. Whoa, wrong size. Better. Whoops. Well, it kind of slid off my workbench. You know, such the proper workbench. Off. Now we just need to clean up what we got left over. That's the end of cutting on the front one. So we got the welds from the brackets ground off. This one kind of cut a little deep. Sometimes things just cut pretty deep. But no, so we'll weld that back up. Only problem is we're missing a couple welders. Had a gentleman interested in both MIG welders that we had, so I took that as an opportunity to upgrade. And the other problem is the new one's not here yet. A couple days though. But once that is here, we'll fill that back in. Then we'll go snag Ted's tube sander and get the rest of the tube nice and cleaned up. Speaking of cleaning up, this mess has got to get tidied up before we move to the rear one. Slowly. Nice. Usually I'm not that smooth. We can put this away. No tie rods to deal with on the back. So we got the rear ready to go. The racks that we built a couple weeks ago are pretty handy when it's coupled with that guy. Sure beats breaking your back. Thankfully, since these were leaf spring axles, we don't have as much to cut off the rear. We got the leaf spring mount on both sides, shock mount on both sides. But before we do that, we're gonna rip the drums off and get all that junk out of the way. Need a tray. There we go. That right there is a much beefier axle shaft. I mean, I got small hands, but let me assure you, this is larger than the Rover ones by quite a bit. Well, you can definitely tell how gravity works and which way the axles lean in, but we're gonna let that guy drip for a little bit before we rip this behemoth off. That right there, one heck of a drum. We're also finally gonna get rid of the V10 Touareg shell. It's getting that time of year again. Snow's gonna fly. Time to tidy up around here. Only problem is, like you guys know, it no longer moves under its own power. It's a good thing we have the Eco around. You wanna go out with it a little more? There. Custom steering setup here. All right, let it out. Keep coming. Apparently there's more plastic than there is metal. Guess that's one way of hauling it out of here. With the axle shaft out of the way, we just need to remove this retaining nut to slide the hub and wheel bearing assembly off. There we go. There we go. This side appears to be a little bit wet. Must have a leak. Dusty over here. Now that's much cleaner looking without those on there. And just a little note, when you're taking stuff like this apart, I usually stack all the components in reverse order. That is exactly how it came off. We just set it face down. Much easier to deal with when you're gonna put it back together. This one's got a bit of a droopy weld. Solid. Time for a pit stop. some more fantastic welds on this side. Ah, the Harbor Freight chisel giving up the ghost. And we made another mess. So we now have a couple axles that are ready to start being modified. All the brackets are now off. We kind of have a baseline bare axle to work with. Next step to get these guys underneath the camper is going to involve the Risco Disco axles. We're going to need to rip all the arms, shocks, and everything off these. And then once that new welder shows up, we're going to make a jig utilizing all the factory locations, like these guys here. And that'll let us drop these 1-tons right into that jig, center them up, and buzz the new brackets on. And thankfully back there, we got the CNC plasma. So hopefully they even turn out nice. With getting the Plasti Dip off and the outdoor stuff out of the way before the snow flies, we're gonna be able to get the camper inside here, get it painted, do some fiberglass work, and refresh the interior, because that thing is going to see the country next year, and hopefully without breaking an axle. That'll be on the continuation of our 1-ton axle swap. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I kind of tossed this project into the mix because we had a week open up. Kind of a bit of a bummer. Would have loved to do the Land Rover Trek Defender Challenge, the Land Rover Defender Trek Challenge, with Justin from Lucky 8 and the other guys. But sometimes life just doesn't work out as planned, and at the end of the day, I'm very fortunate to not have the problems that we are seeing down in the Asheville, North Carolina area. The Trek Challenge was going to be at the Biltmore property in Asheville, and obviously, if you've seen the news, they were hammered pretty hard down there, and my thoughts go out to all them. They're just frickin' Land Rovers. They have it much worse down there. It puts life into perspective. Maybe some other day we'll get to do that, and we'll bring you guys along. With that being said, appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing, and we will catch you on the next one. Probably gonna be the Eco out in the woods. And speaking of winter, the Eco Challenge keeps putting in work.